Well, everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and take a look at the iPhone 14 and compare it against the iPhone 13 Pro Max and see which specific phone is a better one for you. Now, if you want to pick up either one of these phones, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, you might be wondering why compare these two devices. Well, the iPhone 14 is about $829 off contract. The iPhone 13 Pro Max, you can probably find it for even cheaper than that in the used market. So it's very interesting to see how both these phones, the cheapest 14 versus the most expensive 13 series. Now, starting off with the front, you can definitely tell the 13 Pro Max is a much bigger phone. We had a massive 6.7-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. Now, one of my favorite things about this specific phone was the display. It is probably its biggest asset. It's a massive panel. Personally, I don't really like using a phone this big, but the thing with the iPhone 13 Pro Max is we were getting a little bit of a smaller notch, but we were getting 120 hertz ProMotion on this type of phone, which was beautiful. Having that type of capability is cool. I love it so much, and I'm so glad Apple has, pretty much ported it over to all the newer iPhones except for the, 14 and 14 Plus. But this is still a very good iPhone, and the display is beautiful for sure. With the iPhone 14, on the other hand, we have a smaller 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display, and it is a pretty good panel. It's not bad. It is definitely not as good as the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Some things it's not as big. You still have the same type of styling, but you do get, the lack of ProMotion on this phone, so no 120 hertz here, and that is kind of a disadvantage if I'm being honest. So, in terms of the front, that kind of covers it up there. Now, in terms of the side panel, we actually have a little bit of a different type of styling, but they're kind of the same thing. So they both have flat sides, which is really cool, and I love having flat sides on these phones. But the thing to keep in mind is you don't have a SIM card tray on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, which is pretty insane. I wish this thing had it, but it doesn't. But the other thing to keep in mind is with the actual flat side itself, it is a little bit of a nicer styling on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. It's like this metallic silver type of thing, which is really nice, and I love that a lot. Now, with the backs of both these iPhones, it is also a completely different story. So with the iPhone 12, we have this, or with the 14, this one looks like the iPhone 12, we have this standard glass back. The 13 Pro Max has this frosted glass back. So completely different styling, much premium feeling, much more premium feeling, and much better feeling on the 13 Pro Max than on the 14, in my opinion. Now with the camera setups, dual camera setup on the iPhone 14, 13 Pro Max has a triple camera setup with a LiDAR sensor. We'll get into all those things in a second, but MagSafe capability on both, emergency SOS satellite mode here, landing ports on the bottom here, and that kind of covers it up on the outside. There's really not that big of a difference. Now, one of the things Apple does when they go ahead and, drop a new phone is that they end up putting a new chipset in these devices. When the 13 Pro Max came out, all of the iPhone 13s ended up getting the A15 Bionic chip, which was really cool. That was a good chipset. It really wasn't like a crazy big difference, but it made these phones feel smooth, especially with that ProMotion display. I loved it. I loved how this phone held up, and it still looks beautiful in my opinion. However, with the iPhone 14, we are also pretty much in the same boat. We have the same exact chipset inside, which is very, very interesting. Now, is it that big of a deal? I mean, I don't think it's like that big of a deal, but it is very interesting that with this type of phone, we actually don't have, a newer chipset. We have the same A15 Bionic from the year before. So that is kind of a disadvantage in my opinion. It kind of seems like they didn't really think about putting the newer chipset here, and it makes me think that this iPhone will end up lasting just as long as the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So I would probably end up keeping that in the back of your head that these two phones are probably going to end up lasting the same exact amount of time when it comes down to it. So in terms of that, that kind of covers it up there. Now let's go and do a speed comparison between both these phones. The iPhone 14 has that Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it with 6 gigs of RAM, and the iPhone 13 Pro Max also has that Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it with 6 gigabytes of RAM as well. So let's see which one's the faster one between both. Okay, hopefully you guys can see the displays, clearing all the apps here. 13 Pro Max on the left, iPhone 14 is on the right, phone calls 3, 2, 1. Okay, about the same thing, music 3, 2, 1. Okay, kind of the same thing too, App Store 3, 2, 1. And 2 different pop-ups on both. Let's go and scroll through here and see what's going on. And they both are very smooth. The 14, even though it's 60 hertz, still looks very smooth. But the 13 Pro Max probably smoother. News 3, 2, 1. And 2 different pop-ups on both as well. Let's go and hop out of here. Mail 3, 2, 1. 13 Pro Max I think is the faster one. Camera 3, 2, 1. And let's take a photo. Let's go and open up that photo. 13 Pro Max I think is slightly faster. Photos 3, 2, 1. Okay, going up out of here. As always, we have a bunch of these third-party applications we can go and open up. So let's get into it. Facebook, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I think 13 Pro Max was faster. Stack, 3, 2, 1. A little bit of an annoying pop-up there. I don't know if it would have been faster or not with those pop-ups, so we'll just kind of have to load this one load up in the background. Tempo Run 2, 3, 2, 1. It's very weird when, like, I've already opened up so many of these games on this phone and it's still being weird. So we did have downloading content kind of take up a little bit more time on this specific device, but maybe it still would have been faster on the iPhone 14, who knows. And we did get into it on 14. 13 Pro Max a little bit behind. Let's go and load up this game in the background and just kind of see what's going on with it. And we'll just go and hop out of both these. Let's go and get into Snapchat, 3, 2, 1. 13 Pro Max faster, Instagram, 3, 2, 1. 14 is faster, Twitter, 3, 2, 1. 13 Pro Max is faster, Facebook, 3, 2, 1. I think we already opened that one up. Fruit Ninja, which I do not have here. Stack, which we already opened. Snake First Blocks, 3, 2, 1. And I think almost the same exact thing. Netflix, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, so I think we're seeing quite a reoccurring trend here. I think when it comes down to it, the iPhone 13 Pro Max and the iPhone 14 are almost identical. I probably wouldn't go from one phone to the other just based off the speed. We're getting the same type of performance. The only thing that I'm even kind of noticing is that something like the iPhone 13 Pro Max with its 120Hz display does kind of make things seem a little bit smoother and a little bit faster. So that is something I actually do like. But between everything else, you're going to be getting pretty much the same exact type of performance. Like these phones almost have the same exact internals when it comes down to it. So in terms of that, that kind of covers it up there. Now another massive difference between these two phones is actually with the cameras. The 13 Pro Max with that triple camera setup is very, very, very good. Still probably one of the best cameras out. The 14 has a dual camera setup, wide and ultra wide. You're getting that additional telephoto lens on the back of the iPhone 13 Pro Max and that LiDAR sensor. You're getting 4K at 60 on the front and the back of both these, which is really nice. And the 13 Pro Max last year, like I stated, this was probably the best camera of last year, which is wild. It was easily like one of my most favorite phones of all time. And even with this thing, I mean, this thing still looks very, very good. You have that ultra-wide sensor, which allows you to zoom out a lot into a photo, which is really cool. So 0.5x zoom, but you also have, I believe, 15x zoom when you're zooming into a photo. So that is another big thing. If you're getting this type of device, you are going to be getting a solid type of camera, which is really, really cool. So personally, I love seeing that. And you still have things like cinematic mode, which is really cool. You have standard photo and video mode with portrait mode as well, which is really cool. So this is a very solid camera, and I am a humongous fan of this specific device, and I would probably say it's an overall better camera than the iPhone 14. With the iPhone 14, you are getting it's a good camera too, don't get me wrong. It's a very, very solid lens. However, when compared, like I said before, to the iPhone 14 Pro Max or the 13 Pro Max, it's not at the same caliber. You have that ultra-wide sensor, which is really nice. You have 5x zoom, which isn't anything compared to the 15x zoom we have in the iPhone 13 Pro Max, but you still have things like cinematic mode, standard video mode, 4K at 60 on the front and the back, portrait mode, and you have that new action mode as well, which is really cool. So I'll say the quality of the lenses are still very good on the 14, and they may even be better than the 13 Pro Max. I just think you're getting better camera on the iPhone 13 Pro Max than on the iPhone 14, in my opinion. So that kind of covers it up there. Now, I haven't done a battery comparison test yet, but I have seen that my 13 Pro Max gave me amazing battery life last year, and the iPhone 14 is giving me pretty good, noticeable, bigger battery differences from the 13, 12, 11, 10R. But to wrap it up, I think the iPhone 14 is a very good phone. I think it's a good phone. To say it's a very good phone, we have to use it for a little bit of time. I just don't think it's worth the price that it is for $829. I think the 13 Pro Max, for being sold in the used market, you can easily buy this phone everywhere. People are just probably selling these phones like crazy, or they're probably even keeping them, who knows. But I think the 13 Pro Max is definitely worth like $829. I think this phone is still like a $1,000 phone. I don't think the 14 is an $800 phone, to be honest. I think it's probably worth maybe like $650 or $600. I don't think it was that big of a difference. I think the iPhone 13 Pro Max is probably the one you should pick up if you're okay with the bigger size. So that kind of covers it up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.